It is the direct upgrade to KBT08 Granbeetle, packing all the weight and especially all of the high-end firepower and the heat. It is KBT09 Kaiser Beetle, coming to the game with a kit of power rifle, Longshot, Gatling, biped legs, and the leg ability of heavy arms, which buffs all leg stats minus armor and heavy limit for every heavy part equipped on the build. Now it is honestly really nice to see this ambiguous KBT type fitting of his name of Kaiser, finally making his grand debut into the modern games with a 3D model no less, so we can finally take a look and revel in his grand proportions across the build. Power Rifle is a standard shooting attack that gets a times 1.5 damage bonus, as long as the user's legs are intact, so a very solid and conventional skill right from the start, right just like Granbeetle in this case. Right Arm of Longshot is a skill that we've seen on only one other model thus far, and it was the Rockman.exe collab model Fortate. Simply put, it is another basic shooting attack that gets a damage bonus relative to how far away from the center line that the target is. So definitely good for taking pot shots from afar, say from folks that just finished their turn or are just getting ready to come back around to make head back to the line. Left Arm of Gatling is a standard shooting attack that is a scattered AoE, meaning that it will damage one part at normal damage and then damage two others at random at 1/3 of your extra damage. Now across the board, his stats are definitely on the higher end tanky side, still not necessarily like super tanky, such as say Particle might be in this case, but still enough that he can definitely tank a hit and keep on going. About 3750 HP for the head, about 3400 HP per arm, about 3450 for his legs, are pretty nice sweet spots across the board. Also very nice base power, also with double pierce damage and a scattered AoE means he's got very solid coverage as your dedicated shoot fighter in this case. Also very solid heat and cool across the board, being that he can run pretty quick. Still not entirely sure how he'll run with that bulky leg, but I digress. With pretty solid stats across the board. His leg stats do leave a little bit to be desired, though, at a mobility of 756 and evade of 910, neither of which are honestly bad, kind of in that sweet spot of where you want to be as like a minimum. Melee resist of 765 really isn't all that great, meaning up close and personal, he's definitely not going to be the greatest, but a shoot resist of 1432 means he can definitely take a lick from incoming shooting attacks and keep on kicking. But that is not the end of it. Reminder that his leg ability is heavy arms, which means all of these stats, the shoot and melee resist, the evade, and the mobility, go up relative to the number of heavy parts equipped. And wouldn't you know it, as a biped leg with this ability, he's packing 3 heavy parts, which means the stats that you see here on paper are definitely going to be just the base values and not how he's actually going to fight on the field once all those buffs are officially in play. Kaiser Beetle is also capable of Medachange, where he tucks his body in and takes more of a floating tank or a warship kind of form. And in this change, he changes his kit outright to Giga Gatling, Crossfire Set, Crossfire Release, changes his leg type to Wield and his leg ability to Weapon Master, which adds a percentage of the leg's resist stats to base power when attacking. Now, in this case, Kaiser Beetle is donning not one, but 2 extremely limited and almost entirely exclusive skills in his kit alone. Longshot, of course, when not transformed, and Giga Gatling when transformed. And currently, the only user of this is the collaboration model from the Kurtle-chan collab, Black Kid, with his right arm with a scattered AoE. And with that being said, Giga Gatling is, of course, a scattered AoE, much like standard Gatling, meaning it will damage one part at regular damage and then 2 others at random at 1/3, but it also has the times 1.5 damage bonus of Power Rifle and Mega Gatling, but it also ignores defense, making it arguably the strongest that we have of the scattered AoE parts currently in the game. Of course, at the cost that you are not able to defend or evade, of course, while you're in your cooldown. Crossfire Set and Release we have seen on a number of bots so far, but primarily on Granbeetle and Saikachi's, just to nail a couple of iconic examples. Crossfire Set is a setup skill that sets a turret on the field, and Release, of course, is when you power up a skill and then fire in tandem with that said turret for massive damage dealouts across the board. Now, of the 3 here, Weapon Master also does tie into this for that extra damage, even more so, but let's just take a look at his stats while transformed. About a base damage, about 1921 for his Giga Gatling. It's a really nice starting place, but remember, he also gets the defense ignore and the times 1.5 damage bonus for even more of a damage deal out and a punish from that. Then, of course, with Crossfire Release at a base damage of 1865 is honestly really nice. And then the set, of course, at 1151 that's added to it means that when Crossfire Set and Release is used, he can absolutely lay on the pain and make every hit absolutely count. In addition to the Weapon Master, which makes it hit even more painfully than before, since it is tying into that base damage, into the shoot resist when attacking. In this case, with a shoot resist of 1887, you will see a percentage of that added to the base damage for even more of a punish across the board. Now, as a pure set score for these reasons, I do have to rate Kaiser Beetle a pretty solid 8.5 out of 10. I would have rated him a little higher, such as say like a 9 out of 10, but he does have a particular set of glaring weaknesses that makes using him a little tricky if you perhaps don't know what you're doing with him. First of which is that while not transformed, all three of his parts are heavy, meaning that he is fully susceptible and weak to heavy punish, such as say press, break hammer, wide break. So if something on him does end up getting broken before he has the chance to transform, that's essentially it for him, and that hinders a lot of his potential ability on the field. In addition to this, even though his leg stats will actually be a lot better when not transformed, thanks to the heavy arms like ability, it does honestly require making use of triple heavy to actually use him to his fullest advantage, which does also kind of make using him very selectively niche and kind of require in that case that you have to use him as a pure set to really use him at his fullest potential, as denoted here, of course, where he also has Giga Gatling and then Crossfire Set and Release to make use of. As mixed parts, on the other hand, I do have to rate him just a little bit lower on the other hand, since given the fact that if you use him as mixed parts, Kaiser Beetle kind of loses a lot of what makes him so powerful and so nasty on the field. Even though he is packing some very solid base damage, even as mixed parts, you are missing out on the Medachange ability that he does have, especially on terrains where, say, wheeled legs are really good at, where he gets that naturally high mobility, in order to use him at the fullest advantage. But all the same, the mixed parts still are still very useful. Longshot we have seen before, and is a particularly meta move in some cases, especially as, say, like a punish move in some cases where someone is running back to the line for that extra damage. And of course, Power Rifle, of course, you can never go wrong with. Basic Gatling, you can generally never go wrong with, even if it is a heavy part in this sense. Whereas, even with the basic biped leg 2 with heavy arms is relatively balanced across the board, where you can use it on just about anyone, say Bayonet or God Emperor or even Parallel Deuce, who also is triple heavy, but also is a primarily shooting-based fighter.